All right, let's dive in. Welcome to the deep dive, where we go deep, like really deep, into the research and we pull out the most interesting stuff for you guys. Today we're looking at Xpeng, and they're a Chinese EV company, and they've been making a lot of noise in the automotive world, especially after a really, really big year in 2024. And we're going right to the source, looking at the financial reports, company filings, all that good stuff. Really giving you an inside look at their operations and what they want to do, their ambitions, you know. And of course, we have to talk about how they're doing financially.
It's almost like we're getting a backstage pass to, one of the most exciting companies in the entire auto industry. And yeah, going through these sources, you really get a good picture of what they're all about, what XPeng is all about, and where they're going.
Okay, so to set the stage a little bit, Xpeng is not just another company, just slapping batteries into old designs, right? They're really laser focused on this idea of smart EVs, and what that means is vehicles that are just packed with tech, cutting edge tech, innovative design, and an overall smarter driving experience. They've got a whole bunch of these smart EVs, six models, the P7, P5, the G9, the G6, and the X9. We're not talking about tiny little city cars or anything. These cars have wheelbases, and for people who don't know, that's the distance between the front and rear axles. That basically tells you how much space you have inside. Well, they're pushing 3,000 millimeters. So these are big, roomy, comfortable vehicles, and their CLTC range, that's the Chinese way of measuring how far an EV can go on one charge. That's really impressive, enough to make you forget about going to the gas station, I think.
And it's cool, right? Because they're not just making cars, they're building a whole ecosystem around them. So you've got this really strong sales and service network, over 500 stores in 181 cities in China. And they're blending this online and physical presence is really seamless for the customer. And then you think about their charging infrastructure, and they're not just relying on other companies to do that for them. They've got over 1,100 self-operated charging stations. And this includes those super fast 480 kilowatt S4 supercharging stations. You see those popping up all over the place in major cities. So you can charge your Xpeng in just a few minutes. Range anxiety.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah, it really is like they've thought of everything, from the cars themselves to how you buy them to service, even how you charge them.
Yeah, trying to control that whole experience. And for a young company that's trying to get known, that's a really, really smart move, I think.
Definitely, definitely. And when you talk about competition, 2024 was a huge year for them. They launched two new models, the G6, they did that back in June, and then the X9, they just launched that in January, and both of them were out on the streets right after. But the one that really, really, I think, shook up the industry was when they announced this partnership.
Yeah, the partnership with Volkswagen, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a company that basically, invented the modern car
Yeah.
almost. So when they announced that, people were surprised. And they took a 4.99% stake in Xpeng, which is limited to 94,666,666 Class A ordinary shares. That I think shows a real belief in Xpeng and what they can do.
And, it's more than just money. They also have this technical framework agreement. And what that means is they're working together to make two brand new electric vehicles. But here's the interesting thing. Volkswagen, this giant with all this history and all this knowledge, they're going to use Xpeng's G9 platform and their technology
Yeah.
to build these new cars. It's kind of like the student is now teaching the teacher.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. And it really says something, I think, about, how things are changing in the car industry. You've got this young company like Xpeng that's really good with technology, and now they're seen as a leader, even by companies like Volkswagen.
Right, exactly, exactly. Okay, so we talked about, their network, their new models, this big partnership, but let's talk about money. How is Xpeng actually doing financially? Well, their report shows, steady growth. They've been climbing for the past 3 years. In 2021, their total revenue was 20,988,131 RMB. 2022, they went up to 26,855,119 RMB. And then in 2023, they hit 30,676,067 RMB. That's huge.
Yeah, and if you dig a little deeper, it's pretty clear it's the cars that are driving all this growth. Look at the cost of sales. That's basically the cost of making those EVs. In 2021, 17,733,036 RMB. 2022, 22,493,122 RMB. And then 2023, 28,457,909 RMB. People are buying a lot of Xpengs.
Yeah, they are. They are. But I think what I find really interesting is how dedicated they are to research and development. They're not just happy with what they have now. They're always pushing things forward. 2021, they spent 4,114,267 RMB on R&D. Then in 2022, that went up to 5,214,836 RMB. And then in 2023, they spent 5,276,574 RMB. They're putting a lot of money into making things better, and that tells you something about where they see themselves going.
Yeah, it's the sign of a company that wants to be at the front of the pack, you know? They're not just trying to keep up, they're betting big on the future.
Exactly, exactly. Now, I know some people are thinking, what about profit? Because, Xpeng has reported some losses in the past 3 years. 4,863,096 RMB in 2021. Then it was 9,138,972 RMB in 2022. And then in 2023, 10,375,775 RMB. But before you panic,
Yeah, don't panic yet. This kind of thing, it's normal for a young company that's growing fast and investing in, really advanced technology. They're playing the long game. They're building something big.
it's like building one of those huge skyscrapers, You got to dig a deep foundation before you can see the amazing views from the top.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, they're building their skyscraper on things like innovation,
Hmm.
They've got these partnerships and the market's growing really fast. They're in a good spot.
Yeah, it is really interesting to watch them,
Yeah.
going through this big growth phase. They're not just thinking about selling cars today. They're thinking about like building their brand, their reputation, that technological edge they have that's going to help them win in the long run.
Speaking of that edge, we've been talking about these smart EVs, but I got to ask, what makes them so smart? What sets them apart? What's the tech that's different?
One word, integration. They're really good at blending that advanced software and the hardware to make a driving experience that isn't just electric, but it's actually intelligent. They've developed a bunch of their own technology, proprietary stuff that makes driving safer, more convenient, and just more fun.
All right, you got me hooked. What kind of tech are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first, you got to check out Xpilot. It's their advanced driver assistance system. It's got things like adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, automatic emergency braking, stuff like that. All that's designed to make driving less stressful and safer.
So like having a co-pilot who's always paying attention, ready to jump in.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't stop there. They have XNGP. It stands for a navigation guided pilot. This is where the smart really kicks in. The car can actually drive itself like autonomously on highways and even some city roads, handles lane changes, overtaking, even those tricky intersections.
Wow, okay, that's getting pretty close to self-driving, isn't it?
It's definitely moving in that direction. Full self-driving, yeah, that's still being worked on, but XNGP shows you like how serious they are about this. They're constantly collecting data, refining their algorithms, all working towards this future where cars really can drive themselves.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. But what about just being inside an Xpeng? What's that like?
Okay, so imagine this. You get in, sleek interior, minimalist, and then bam, this huge touchscreen right there on the dashboard. That's XSmart OS, their intelligent operating system, controls everything. Navigation, music, climate, even like vehicle settings, everything.
Okay, so it's like having a giant tablet, but like integrated right into the car.
You got it. But it's more than just looks. XSmart OS, it learns what you like. It anticipates your needs. It even makes personalized recommendations. The whole idea is to make this connected, intuitive experience for the driver.
And, can't talk about smart EVs without talking about batteries, right?
Yeah.
What's the story with Xpeng's battery tech?
So they use lithium-ion batteries, high-performance ones, similar to what you see in other EVs. But what makes them stand out is, one, they're really focused on those battery management systems, the software that makes sure the battery is running efficiently. And two, their charging infrastructure is amazing. Remember those 480 kilowatt S4 superchargers?
Yeah, the ones that can charge an Xpeng super fast.
Exactly. Those things are game changers. No more range anxiety, charge up in a few minutes. But that's not all. They're doing a ton of research on battery tech, trying to get more range, make the batteries even better.
So they're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Not just about what's good now, but what's going to be awesome in the future.
Right. They know that for EVs to really take over, the charging experience needs to be just as easy or even easier than filling up with gas.
Yeah, absolutely. But with all this tech talk, it makes you wonder, how are those big traditional car companies doing? Seems like they're playing catch up while Xpeng is just like zooming ahead. Are those legacy car companies in trouble?
I think it's safe to say they're facing some big challenges. I mean, they've been building cars with engines for like 100 years. That doesn't really help you when you're trying to make electric cars, smart cars. They built their empires on gasoline, and now things are changing, and it's hard for them.
It's like they're trying to turn a giant cruise ship around in, like a tiny canal. And Xpeng is zipping right past them in a speedboat.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They're kind of stuck in the past. Huge factories, these complicated supply chains, all designed for a different time. They're trying to change, but it's not easy when you're that big and you've been doing things the same way for so long.
And then you have Xpeng, a young company born right into this time of change, right?
Hmm.
They're all about software, they're agile, they're not afraid to try new things. It's like David and Goliath. But this time, David has a really high-tech slingshot.
Exactly. It's a classic story, but with a twist. So, yeah, Xpeng might actually be a better bet for the future compared to those older companies. I mean, they're moving fast, they're innovative, and they're focused on where the world is going. Electric, intelligent, connected.
Okay, I get it, I get it. People are excited about Xpeng. But
Mhm.
let's change gears a little. What about their plans to go global? I know they're already in Europe, but where do they want to go from there? The U.S. market. Land of pickup trucks and SUVs, can they make it there?
They definitely want to be a global leader, that's for sure. And yeah, the US is a big part of that, but they also know it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's a tough market, right? You've got Tesla and then all those big car companies. Everyone's trying to get a piece of that EV pie.
You're not wrong. It's a tough nut to crack. But Xpeng, they've done it before. They took on the Chinese market, which is huge and really competitive, and they're doing great.
And let's not forget about politics, right?
Mm.
We've talked about how some countries, especially in the West, they're a little nervous about Chinese companies getting bigger, especially in tech. That's got to be a factor for Xpeng as they try to grow around the world.
Yeah, for sure. Politics always plays a role in international business. It's tricky. But Xpeng's been good at navigating these tricky situations. They're making partnerships, building relationships. They're showing everyone that they can be trusted, that they're innovative, and they're here to stay.
So it's not just about making great cars, it's about building trust, breaking down those political barriers, and convincing the world that Xpeng is the real deal.
You got it. They're part of this new wave of car companies. They're fast, they're good with tech, and they're all about the future. Software is just as important as the hardware, maybe even more. And yeah, that's going to shake things up a bit, and not everyone's going to like it.
I bet. But honestly, it needed to be shaken up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, probably. It's obvious. The whole car industry is changing big time, and Xpeng is right there, leading the charge. A smarter future, a more sustainable future, a more exciting future.
Okay, we covered a lot, right? Their growth, the tech, those global ambitions.
Mm.
But there's one big piece missing. How's their stock doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
The stock market. It's the big test. How is the company really doing? Everyone's watching.
And Xpeng, they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So anyone in the world can invest. But I imagine it's got to be up and down a lot, right? It's a young company, fast-growing industry, lots of competition, and then you have all the politics. They got to make the stock price go crazy sometimes.
Absolutely. Up and down, all over the place. It's normal, for a company like this in a market that's changing so fast.
So for people like me who, aren't stock experts, what should we be looking at? What's important when you're trying to figure out if Xpeng stock is a good buy? What makes you go, interesting?
Okay, few things. First, look at how many cars they're selling. Each quarter, are they selling more and more? Are they hitting their targets or even beating them?
Yeah, makes sense. They're a car company, so if they're selling a lot of cars, that's good, right?
Exactly. Another thing is gross margin. Basically, how much profit are they making on each car they sell? Can they keep those margins healthy as they make more cars?
So it's not just about selling more, it's about making money while they're doing it.
You got it. Investors want to see that they can grow and be profitable. And then you got to look at their R&D spending.
Right, we talked about how they're big on innovation, and that costs money.
It does. And investors like to see that they're putting money into developing new tech, staying ahead of the curve. Because with tech, if you're standing still, you're basically going backwards.
Yeah, got to keep moving, got to keep moving. And then finally, how's their global expansion going? Are they getting into new markets, making partnerships that'll help them grow internationally?
Because at the end of the day, they need to be a global player to really succeed. And that's what investors want to see.
So sales growth, gross margin, R&D spending, global expansion. Got it. Those are the things to watch. But, we're not financial advisors or anything. Just two guys having a chat, sharing what we found, digging into Xpeng.
Exactly. Always do your own research, talk to a professional if you need to, and make your own decisions. The stock market can be unpredictable. Gotta be prepared.
All right, so let's take a breath for a second. When we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive into Xpeng. We'll talk about the big picture, the future of the car industry, and whether Xpeng is really going to lead the way. And we're back to the deep dive. This episode, it's all about Xpeng, right? Their smart EVs, all those partnerships they're making, how their financials are looking, and those big global plans they have. But now I think it's time to kind of zoom out a little. Look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I think the really interesting thing here is Xpeng just like a successful company, or are they like a sign of something much, much bigger happening? We talked about how those legacy car companies are struggling, but let's really get into that for a second. Imagine, right? You've got these massive factories, these super complicated supply chains, and they're all built around the old gas engine.
Yeah, it's like they built a whole empire on gasoline.
Yeah.
And now that foundation, it's crumbling. I can almost hear those gears grinding,
Yeah.
as they try to switch to electric.
It's not just about like physically building a different kind of car, though, is it? It's the whole culture, the way these companies think. They're used to things changing slowly, not this crazy fast disruption you see with EVs.
In Xpeng, they were born right into this.
Yeah.
They're quick. They're all about software. They're not scared to try new things. I keep coming back to this David and Goliath thing, but it really is like that. Except this time, Goliath, well, he might be tripping over his own feet.
I think what we need to understand is this isn't just about which companies win or lose. This is about how we think about transportation, how we get around, how technology fits into our lives. It's a big shift.
Okay, so, million-dollar question, and this one's for you guys listening to think about this. Will the car of the future, will it be more about the software than the hardware?
Yeah, that's the big one. And that's going to shape the whole car industry for a long time. And if the answer is yes, and I think it is, then it's companies like Xpeng, the ones that are all about software, they're the ones to watch.
It's crazy, right? It used to be all about horsepower, how big the engine was, the physical stuff. Now it's all about the screens, the software, self-driving features, updates that change your car, like overnight. It's wild.
It's a whole new world. We went from nuts and bolts to bits and bytes. And that's a world where a company like Xpeng, they don't have all that baggage from the past. They might actually have the advantage.
Yeah, it just might. But we talked about them going global, and they're running into some roadblocks, right? Governments, especially in the West, they're a little nervous about Chinese companies doing so well in the EV market. Some countries are even putting tariffs on those imported EVs, trying to protect their own car companies. What do you think about all that?
It's definitely complicated, no doubt. But I think it's important to remember the world is connected, right? Trying to stop ideas and technology from crossing borders, it's like trying to stop the tide from coming in. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you think about it. Those tariffs, they usually end up hurting the people buying the cars. Prices go up, you have fewer choices, and it slows everything down. It slows down the whole shift to electric cars, which is supposed to be better for the environment and all that.
Yeah, it's like you got two kids fighting over this broken toy while there's a brand new electric car sitting right there ready to take them on an adventure.
Exactly. The world is going electric, and the people who get on board, they're going to be the ones who benefit. And Xpeng, they get it. They're not letting politics stop them. They're moving forward, they're innovating, they're expanding, they're making deals with companies all over the world. They're pushing this EV thing forward.
And that's what it's all about, right?
So that's it for our deep dive into Xpeng. We hope you guys are excited, you know, curious about what's going to happen next. Here's the thing. Keep an eye on this company. And keep an eye on what's happening in the car industry. It's changing fast. The future, it's electric, it's smart, and it's happening right now.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe the next time you're driving, you'll be behind the wheel of an Xpeng, experiencing all this innovation firsthand. But until then, keep learning, keep asking questions.